Elliot Warren stood in the middle of the courtroom, the mop still in his hand, as the entire room fell silent. "I will protect her," he said, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. His calloused fingers tightened around the mop handle as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. At the defendant's table, Ariana Lockhart, the billionaire whose own lawyer had just abandoned her, lifted her head and looked at him with utter disbelief. None of them knew that this simple moment would mark the beginning of the unraveling of one of the darkest conspiracies in American corporate history. Before we dive into this moving story of justice, courage, and rebirth, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe that anyone, whether a proud billionaire or a quiet janitor, deserves to be treated fairly under the law, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stories about silent heroes like Elliot deserve to be told, and you won't want to miss them. Now, let's see what drove a forgotten legal genius to rise up against the very system that once crushed his life. But before everything began to shift, what do you think made Elliot, someone who had lost nearly everything, step out of the shadows at that exact moment? The autumn sunlight of New York filtered through the tall windows of the Manhattan Federal Courthouse, casting streaks of light across the marble floor that Elliot Warren had just finished cleaning. 5 in the morning, just like every day for the past 15 years, he was already here. A 45-year-old man with brown hair beginning to turn gray and deep brown eyes, dressed in a Navy maintenance uniform with the word maintenance embroidered on the chest pocket. The tiny apartment in Queens was still pitch black when he left at 4 a.m. The room had only a single bed, a small stove, and a bare wall adorned with just one photo, the wedding picture of him and Sarah, from 17 years ago before cancer took away the woman he loved. Beside it was a picture of their daughter Mia, now 20, and in her final year of college. Though in the frame she was only 5, smiling brightly in her mother's arms. Elliot didn't turn on the lights when he left home. Winter electricity bills were high, and with a salary of $2,800 a month, every penny mattered. Breakfast was just black coffee, toast, and food he packed from the courthouse's basement cafeteria, a small privilege for maintenance staff. That morning, as he pushed his cleaning cart down the third-floor hallway, Elliot paused in front of courtroom 302, what he considered the place of the biggest cases. And today, one of the most significant legal battles in New York history was set to begin. The lawsuit against Ariana Lockhart, the tech billionaire worth $14 billion. He didn't hear about the case from the news, he didn't own a TV, but from the nights he spent cleaning that very courtroom. He had seen the polished lawyers, heard the things they said when they believed no one was listening. To them, the janitor was just furniture, invisible, not worth noticing. But Elliot hadn't always been invisible. 15 years ago, he had been one of the rising stars at Whitfield & Associates, a prestigious law firm in Manhattan. He had a corner office overlooking Central Park, the reputation of never losing a major case, and a brilliant future until everything collapsed. He pushed the memories away. That was the past. Now, he mopped floors, polished benches, emptied trash, an honest job that paid the rent and allowed him to occasionally send a bit of money to Mia, even though she always refused to take it. As Elliot was about to leave the courtroom, his phone buzzed, a message from the supervisor. "Warren, room 302 needs to be cleaned again. VIP today." Elliot exhaled. VIP meant pressure, inspections, and countless opportunities to get yelled at for the smallest mistake. But as always, he didn't complain. By 9 a.m., the courtroom was packed. Reporters squeezed in, lawyers straightened their ties, keyboards clicked furiously. At the defense table, Ariana Lockhart sat alone. She was 38, but looked as if she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her once sharp blue eyes were now clouded with exhaustion. Her Armani suit was flawless, yet her slightly hunched shoulders and tightly clasped hands betrayed the tension consuming her. Next to her were 6 empty chairs, The seats reserved for her legal team from Preston, Holloway and Schmidt, the most expensive firm in New York, charging $6,000 an hour. But they didn't show up. Elliot checked the clock. 9:15. The trial would begin in 15 minutes. Ariana kept calling, and each time she put the phone down, her face grew paler. And Elliot knew. They weren't coming. They had abandoned her. "All rise," the court officer announced. Judge Caroline Fisk entered. Stern, cold, experienced. She paused when her eyes landed on the empty chairs and asked, "Ms. Lockhart, where is your legal team?" Ariana stood, trying to stay composed, but her voice trembled. "I don't know, Your Honor. They were here yesterday. I've tried contacting them all morning, but no one answered." Prosecutor Catherine Morris rose, a thin, triumphant smile on her face. "Your Honor, it is clear the defense has been abandoned. We move for a default judgment." The courtroom erupted with murmurs. Reporters typed frantically. Judge Fisk sighed. "If you have no legal representation, the court cannot delay indefinitely. I am forced to. I will protect her." The warm, deep voice cracked through the room like thunder. Everyone turned. Elliot Warren stood there, next to his cleaning cart, the mop still in his hand. The lights reflected off his graying hair, and his face, lined by 15 years of endurance, was now illuminated with determination. Chuckles broke out, first soft, then louder. But he didn't flinch. Elliot set the mop down and walked up the aisle. 2 decades of mopping floors couldn't erase the posture of a lawyer who had once won major cases in this very room. Judge Fisk raised an eyebrow. "Who are you?" "My name is Elliot Warren, Your Honor. I would like to represent Ms. Lockhart." Catherine Morris let out a mocking laugh. "A janitor wants to be a lawyer." Elliot met her gaze. "I was a member of the New York Bar Association for 18 years. A wave of whispers spread across the room. Elliot pulled out his worn wallet and produced his old license. Still valid. The judge examined it, her face paling slightly. "Mr. Warren, how long has it been since you practiced?" 15 years, Your Honor." The air grew heavier. The judge continued, "And you believe you are still competent?" "Your Honor, this woman deserves to be defended. I know the law, I know procedure, and I understand what justice means." Ariana stood. She looked into his eyes, not seeing desperation nor ambition, but sincerity, the kind that a $6,000 an hour legal team could never offer. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "I accept Mr. Warren." The courtroom erupted. Judge Fisk rubbed her temples. "You have 15 minutes to confer with your client, and do not delay the proceedings." Elliot approached the defense table only to be blocked by security. "Sorry, only attorneys allowed in this area." Elliot held out his card. The judge nodded to confirm. The guard stepped aside awkwardly. When he sat down, Elliot felt every pair of eyes fixed on them. But he looked only at Ariana. "Something is very wrong here," he whispered. "This isn't just about your lawyers abandoning you. Everything is orchestrated." Ariana whispered back, "How do you know?" "Because I've seen thousands of cases over the last 15 years. This one isn't natural." "So who?" "We'll find out. But first, I need to hear everything." Ariana looked at him, the man she had passed by every day without noticing, the man who stood up for her when no one else did. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she had found the right person. 15 minutes passed, like 15 seconds. Ariana spoke almost without pausing, trying to compress 3 months of legal preparation into an emergency briefing. She explained her technology, a quantum processor that operated at room temperature, a breakthrough capable of changing everything from computing and data to energy production. She told him about Nexus Innovations, the company accusing her of stealing their technology. And she told him about the 3 months of hell since the allegations surfaced, Stock prices plummeting, the press circling, partners turning their backs. Elliot listened without taking notes. He didn't just hear every word. He absorbed the pauses, the moments when her voice hitched. His deep brown eyes never left Ariana's face. She realized he was doing more than listening to the content. He was reading her. The tension in her voice, the hesitation when mentioning certain details, and the absolute certainty when she spoke about the technology she had created. "Time's up," the clerk announced. Judge Fisk struck the gavel. "Mr. Warren, prepare for your opening statement." Elliot rose and walked to the podium. He felt the full weight of every gaze in the room, some skeptical, some curious, some outright condescending. How many years had it been since he last stood here? How many nights had he lain awake in his small Queens apartment, dreaming of a moment like this? Only to wake up again with a mop in his hand? He placed his hand on the podium, feeling the smooth wood beneath his palm. Drawing a deep breath, Elliot lifted his head and looked directly at the 12 faces in the jury box. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he began, his voice calm and clear, "my name is Elliot Warren. First, I apologize for my appearance. I'm not wearing an expensive suit like my colleague across the aisle. I don't have a fancy office or a team of assistants. Less than an hour ago, I was still mopping the floor of this courtroom." Soft laughter rippled from the back. Elliot heard it clearly, but did not falter. "But for 15 years, I have stood in this room every day, watching justice unfold. I have seen truth triumph, and I have seen truth buried. I have learned that justice does not depend on the price of your suit or the name of the law firm you hire. It rests on something much simpler: the truth." He paused, letting the words settle. "And the truth in this case is simple. Ariana Lockhart stole nothing. She created a revolutionary technology through her own intellect, toil, and talent. Meanwhile, those who truly wish to seize that technology are using the legal system as a weapon." Catherine Morris shot to her feet. "Objection! He's arguing, not delivering an opening statement." "Sustained," Judge Fisk said. "Mr. Warren, keep your remarks to the facts." Elliot nodded. "My apologies, Your Honor. I will let the evidence speak for itself, and I promise you only this. By the end of this trial, it will be unmistakably clear who is telling the truth and who is lying." He sat down. It wasn't a polished opening, nor was it adorned with dazzling rhetoric, but it was sincere. And from the quiet nods of a few jury members, Elliot knew at least someone was truly listening. Catherine Morris stood for her opening statement. Tall, slender, with a smile sharp as glass, she walked to the podium as if it were her personal stage. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, her voice smooth as silk, "this case is not nearly as complicated as the defense wants you to believe. It is extremely simple. Theft." She walked slowly, her gaze sweeping across the faces before her. Ariana Lockhart stole proprietary inventions belonging to Nexus Innovations, a company that invested hundreds of millions of dollars developing quantum processing technology. She used her connections in the industry to access internal research, copied the designs, and filed for patents under her own name. Morris paused, letting the accusation hang heavily in the air. "We will prove this with documents, expert testimony, and the accounts of her own former employees. By the end of this trial, there will be no doubt. Ariana Lockhart is a thief, and thieves must be held accountable." She sat down with the confidence of someone who believed she had already won. The rest of the morning passed like a blurred nightmare. The prosecution called its first witness, a tech analyst who claimed Ariana's design was too similar to be a coincidence to Nexus's internal records. When it came time for cross-examination, Elliot stood, feeling every muscle in his body tense. 15 years since he last did this. 15 years since he last stood before a witness, peeling back details one by one, searching for the smallest inconsistencies to unravel the bigger picture. But when he opened his mouth, something strange happened.